It was supposed to be just another night, cold, wet, and meaningless. The kind of night where people hide inside their homes and the streets whisper with silence. But for Marcus, a man everyone had given up on, it was the night that fate decided to test if redemption was still possible. He stood under a flickering streetlight, his jacket soaked through, his breath forming small clouds in the cold air. In one hand, he held a cigarette he no longer cared to light. In the other, an envelope, the last reminder of his parole conditions. He had been out of prison for exactly 23 hours. Imagine this. You have spent 5 years locked away, treated like a number, and now you are free, but no one wants you. No job will hire you. No family will call you. Even the mirror seems to look at you with judgment. Marcus knew this feeling too well. Freedom, for him, felt like another kind of prison, one without bars, but with invisible walls of rejection. He walked aimlessly down a narrow street near the edge of town. The rain poured harder, beating against cracked pavements and neon signs. The world was asleep, except for the sound of thunder and the occasional rumble of a passing car. Then, through the storm, he saw it, a small figure standing on the bridge. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light, but as he got closer, the shape became clear. Someone was standing on the edge, motionless, staring down at the dark river below. For a brief moment, Marcus froze. His instincts told him to walk away. He had seen enough pain to know when not to get involved. But something inside him, something that had not spoken in years, whispered, "Do something." He moved closer, each step heavy with hesitation. The wind screamed through the steel beams, carrying the faint sound of sobbing. It was a girl, maybe 20, maybe younger, soaked to the bone, shaking, her hands gripping the railing. Marcus did not know what to say. He was a man who had destroyed lives, not saved them. But he knew that look in her eyes. It was the same look he had the night before he was arrested. The look of someone who believed there was no way back. "Please," he said quietly, his voice barely cutting through the storm. "Whatever it is, it can change." She did not turn. "You do not know me," she said through tears. He stepped closer. "No, but I know what it feels like to stop believing in yourself." A car passed behind them, its headlights flashing briefly, illuminating two broken souls standing in the rain. She finally turned her head, and for a second, their eyes met, his filled with regret, hers with despair. That single moment, that silent exchange, was the collision of two lives that should never have crossed paths. Marcus inched forward, careful not to startle her. "You think the pain will stop if you jump," he said, "but it just moves, from you to everyone who loves you." She laughed bitterly. "No one loves me." And in that moment, Marcus saw himself, 5 years ago, sitting alone in a cell, believing the same lie. He reached out his hand, trembling. "Then let me love you enough to stop you. Just this once." The girl's knees weakened, her grip loosening as tears mixed with the rain. For a heartbeat, time froze. Then she turned fully toward him, stepped away from the edge, and collapsed into his arms. Marcus caught her, his heart pounding. He did not know her name, but he knew what had just happened. He had saved a life. They stood there for a while, neither speaking. The rain softened, and the city seemed to breathe again. Marcus helped her to a nearby bench. Her hands were ice cold. "Why were you out here?" she asked finally, her voice fragile. He looked away, trying to figure out if I was still worth saving. She stared at him, realizing what he meant. "You are," she whispered. Marcus gave a faint smile, the first in years. But before he could respond, sirens echoed in the distance. Someone must have seen them on the bridge and called for help. Blue and red lights flashed through the mist, and Marcus felt panic rise in his chest. He had just gotten out. If the police found him at the scene, no one would believe he was helping. He stood quickly. "I have to go." "But," she tried to speak, but he cut her off. "You are safe now," he said. "That is all that matters." He ran into the shadows, disappearing before the police arrived. The girl tried to tell them about him, but she did not even know his full name. All she remembered was his voice, deep and steady, saying, "Let me love you enough to stop you." That night, Marcus hid under an old bridge, shivering but strangely at peace. For the first time in years, he felt something pure, purpose. He had no idea that saving that girl would trigger a chain of events that would transform his life completely in the next 24 hours. As dawn began to break, he looked at the reflection of the city lights on the wet pavement and whispered, "Maybe I still have time to make things right." But fate had only just begun its work. By the next night, Marcus would go from being a forgotten ex-convict to a man everyone would call a hero, but not before facing a choice that would test every part of his soul. Because saving one life was easy, saving himself would be the real battle. Dawn came like a pale apology, and Marcus woke to the sound of trucks hissing over wet streets. He had slept under the bridge like a shadow nobody wanted to claim. Hunger clawed at him. He checked his pocket and found the last crumpled bill from the reentry stipend and the creased parole envelope. On the back, a note from his officer glared at him. Report at 10 a.m. with proof of address and employment plan. Failure to comply equals violation. Tom was already hunting him. He walked toward the first open diner he could find, a place that smelled like burnt coffee and fresh biscuits. Grease popped on the grill. A tired woman behind the counter glanced at his clothes and then at his eyes, and for a second, the judgment softened. He spent his last bill on a plate of eggs and toast and ate like a man who remembered how to be alive only when food touched his tongue. Imagine if your entire future hung on two pieces of paper you did not have. An address. A job. Without them, a metal door would swallow you again. The clock above the register said 7:42. He had just over 2 hours to invent a life. On his way out, a news segment played on the television in the corner. The caption read, "Unknown Good Samaritan saves young woman on bridge." A police spokesperson asked the public to help identify the rescuer. A still image from a security camera showed a blurred silhouette in the rain, arms around a collapsing figure. The camera angle made the man look taller, cleaner, almost noble. The girl's face was hidden by her hair, but her voice in the clip was steady. "Whoever you are," she said, "thank you." The diner fell quiet for a moment, the way rooms do when truth walks in. Marcus looked away. If the world found him now, they would not call him hero when they saw his record. They would call him suspect. He stepped onto the sidewalk with a low ache in his chest and a dangerous thought in his head. Vanish, or become the man the camera wished him to be. At 8:05, he turned down an alley and found a worn leather wallet near a trash can. For a few seconds, he stared at it like it might be a test. Inside were a driver's license, a family photo, and a stack of 20s fat enough to solve breakfast for a week. His hand closed around the cash by habit, and then memory stabbed him. A crying cashier, a shaking elderly man, a night he could never erase. He put the money back and looked at the license. Name, Frank Daly. Address, a corner store 4 blocks away. He walked to the store, pushed open the bell-rung door, and set the wallet on the counter. The owner blinked, surprised. "I would have been ruined," the man said, voice cracking with relief. "My rent money is in there." He tried to offer a reward. Marcus shook his head. The bell rang again as he left, and the owner called after him. "You ever need work, you come by." A seed of hope took root, fragile and stubborn. By 9:12 he was at the parole office, a gray building that made hope cough. Fluorescent lights hummed like insects. Officer Dwyer, square jaw and winter eyes, sat behind a desk with a file already open. "You missed the reentry meeting yesterday," Dwyer said without looking up. "I was early to a bridge," Marcus said quietly, and instantly wished he had kept that to himself. Dwyer studied him. "Proof of address? None yet. Employment plan? I am trying. I returned a wallet to a store owner who offered work." Offered or promised? Offered. Dwyer tapped a pen against the file. "You have until 6 p.m. to provide verifiable proof of address and employment. I am giving you the day because you completed your programs inside, and you kept clean. But I will not bend twice. If you fail, I file a violation and you go back." A weight settled on Marcus's spine, equal parts fear and fuel. "I will bring it," he said. As he left, his phone buzzed with a number he did not know. He ignored it. 10 steps later it buzzed again. He answered. "Where you been, ghost?" The voice was a laugh sharpened into a blade. "Rico. Old crew. Old debts. Word is you are free. We have something sweet planned tonight. Real quick in and out. Easy paper. You owe me." Marcus stopped on the sidewalk, breath cold in his throat. "I am out," he said. "I am done." "You say that now," Rico said. "But when the cuffs come back because you cannot pay a room or file a form, you will remember who kept you fed. We meet at the lot, 9 sharp. Do not make me come find you." The line died. The past had a pulse. At 10:03 Marcus returned to the corner store with the wallet he had saved. The owner, Frank, was talking to a delivery driver whose dolly had tipped, boxes sliding toward a toddler near the door. Marcus lunged without thinking, grabbed the dolly, stopped the slide, and scooped the child out of the path. The mother cried thank you. The driver cursed his clumsiness, and Frank looked at Marcus like a new page had turned. You work like that? Frank asked. Fast and careful. I can. Then sweep the floor now and stock the back. It is not glamorous, but it is honest. I cannot pay much today, but I can write a letter on my letterhead that you are hired part-time with more if it fits. If you keep showing up, I keep adding hours. Deal. The words hit like warm light. Deal. By noon, Marcus had mopped the floor, stacked canned goods into clean straight rows, and carried a cooler with one good handle and one lie of a handle to the back room. As he worked, the news on the small radio repeated the story of the bridge. A witness from a passing cab said the rescuer held the girl like a brother holds a sister he thought he lost. The phrasing cracked something open in him. He thought of his own sister who had stopped answering years ago, too hurt to risk hope. He imagined her scrolling past the clip, pausing, wondering if the silhouette was him, deciding it could not be. At 1:30, Frank printed a simple offer letter on the old machine in his office. The paper came out warm and official enough to breathe. You show up again tomorrow, and the next day, we will talk hours, Frank said. Also, there is a room above the shop the previous clerk used. It is not fancy, but it is clean. If you can pay by the end of the week, it is yours. If you cannot, you can still use the shower today. Proof of employment. A possible address. The day had started as a cliff, and now he could see a narrow path. He carried the letter like it was glass and headed back toward the parole office to get it scanned and logged. On the corner, a patrol car slowed. The officer inside looked at him, then at a photo on his dash, then rolled on. Marcus felt the tremor of being seen and not recognized. Safety and danger were only an angle apart. At 3:05, he signed the acceptance form in Dwyer's office. The officer read the letter, called the number, confirmed the job, and checked a box. You are halfway there, Dwyer said. Bring proof of address by 6. I will accept a temporary arrangement if the landlord or employer confirms. You do that, and you get your next check-in date. You miss it, and I start the process. Thank you, Marcus said. Do not thank me, Dwyer replied. Do the rest. Outside, a drizzle had returned, fine as breath. Marcus dialed Frank. You said there is a room. It is yours if you want it, Frank said. I will send a text confirming tenancy pending payment. That enough? It is everything. The text came through. He forwarded it to Dwyer. A minute later, a reply, received. Return at 5:30 for verification. He exhaled for what felt like the first time in years. He turned a corner toward the bus stop and saw Rico leaning against a black sedan, tattoos bright under a half-zipped jacket. 2 other men sat inside, restless. Rico smiled like a cat that had already swallowed the bird. Congratulations, he said. Paper hero. But paper burns. We have something tonight. 1 stop. Big safe, lazy clerk, no guard. You show, you clear what you owe me, and you walk. I do not owe you that life anymore, Marcus said. Rico's smile did not move, but his eyes went winter. It is a small pharmacy on Halford. New owner. Family place. You know the one. We are doing it at closing. You can choose to come with us. Or you can choose to explain to them why they got hurt, because you did not warn them. The words slammed into Marcus like a fist. Halford Pharmacy. He had walked past it that morning. A flyer on the door had a photo of a young woman who volunteered at the crisis hotline. The face in the photo looked like the girl on the bridge after the rain had washed the night from her eyes. Marcus held Rico's stare. You touch that place, and you touch me. Rico leaned in. Then we will touch it anyway, and let the world decide who you really are. 9 o'clock. The lot. The sedan slid away, its tires whispering threats. Imagine you are standing at the fork where your past and your future pull your arms in opposite directions. On one side, the law that will not believe you if you make one wrong move. On the other, the crew that will make sure you do. And in the middle, a life you just saved at midnight, and a life you were trying to build before 6. Marcus walked to the pharmacy and stepped inside. The bell chimed. The man behind the counter looked up with a cautious smile, and a framed photo on the wall showed him with a daughter at a graduation, caps in the air like prayers. The daughter was the girl from the bridge. He did not say who he was. He asked for a bottle of water and listened to the rhythm of the doors, the placement of the cameras, the safe tucked behind a waist-high counter that a desperate person might vault. He memorized every second of the room the way a drowning man memorizes the surface. When he stepped back onto the sidewalk, the rain had sharpened. 9 o'clock waited like a verdict. He checked the time. If he went to the police, they might not move quickly, and they might ask questions he could not survive. If he ignored it, people could be hurt. If he went to the lot, he would be walking into a trap set by men who believed he was still theirs. He tightened his coat and made a choice that would either save everything or burn it all down. The rain turned heavier by evening, the kind that made the streets shine like glass and washed away the noise of the world. Marcus stood in front of the small mirror above the sink in the store's upstairs room. The walls smelled faintly of soap and dust, but for the first time in years, the reflection looking back at him did not seem like a stranger. There was still guilt in those eyes, but also something else, resolve. He checked his phone, 8:12 p.m. The message from Rico still sat there, glowing like a countdown. 9 o'clock. The lot. His heart pounded. He thought about calling Officer Dwyer, but he knew how that would go. You expect me to believe a parolee knew about a robbery and didn't plan it? No. He had to stop this himself. He grabbed Frank's old jacket from the hook and slipped outside. The rain stung his face as he moved through the alleys, his shoes slapping against puddles. The city lights blurred into streaks of red and gold. He reached the empty parking lot behind a shuttered warehouse just before 9. The black sedan was there, engine running, wipers slicing through the storm. Rico leaned against the hood, cigarette glowing like a warning sign. You showed, Rico said, smirking. Didn't think you had the guts. I came to tell you to stop, Marcus said. Walk away before you ruin your lives. Rico laughed, the sound cold and hollow. You think you're some kind of preacher now? You think saving one girl wipes away what you did? No, Marcus said. But it's a start. The two men from earlier stepped out of the car, masks hanging around their necks. Rico's hand slid into his jacket. You're either with us or in the way. Marcus took a slow step back, rain dripping from his hair. If you hurt anyone tonight, I'll stop you myself. Then you die trying, Rico hissed, pulling a small pistol. The world froze for half a second. Marcus dove sideways as the first shot cracked through the storm. The bullet hit a metal dumpster, sparks flying. Marcus rolled behind a stack of pallets, his breath ragged, mind racing. He had no weapon, no plan, just instinct and desperation. Then he saw it, a broken piece of rebar lying near the curb. He grabbed it, heart pounding so loud it drowned out the rain. Rico's footsteps approached, slow and confident. Come out, Marcus. You can't outrun what you are. Marcus waited, counting the steps. When Rico rounded the corner, Marcus swung. The rebar hit his wrist, sending the gun skidding across the ground. They crashed into the mud, fighting like animals. Years of rage, guilt, and fear burst from Marcus with every strike. Rico clawed at him, cursing, blood mixing with rain. The other two men shouted, one trying to grab the gun, the other hesitating. Shoot him, Rico yelled. The gun fired again, but the bullet hit Rico's leg. Chaos erupted. Marcus slammed the rebar down one last time, knocking Rico out cold. The two others ran for the car, tires screeching as they sped off into the night. Marcus knelt in the rain, gasping. The gun lay beside him, smoke curling from the barrel. For a moment, he considered leaving Rico there, but something inside him refused. He tore his jacket, pressed it against the wound, and called emergency services from a pay phone nearby. When the dispatcher asked for his name, he hesitated. Then he said it. Marcus Hill. I'm the one who stopped the robbery. By the time the police arrived, Rico was unconscious, the weapon secured, and Marcus sitting on the curb with his hands raised. The officers approached cautiously. One of them recognized him from the news. Wait, aren't you the guy from the bridge? Marcus nodded, too tired to speak. Hours later, he sat in the interrogation room again. Officer Dwyer walked in, raincoat dripping. He placed a file on the table and looked at Marcus long and hard. You want to tell me why every time I blink, you're in the middle of another police report? Marcus explained everything. The call, the threat, the plan to rob the pharmacy, how he fought them off. Dwyer listened without interruption, his expression unreadable. When Marcus finished, silence hung in the air. You could have run, Dwyer said finally. I did that once, Marcus replied softly. Didn't work out. Dwyer leaned back. The pharmacist confirmed your story. His daughter saw the men outside before you showed up. You probably saved them both. He opened the file. Rico's being charged. The DA is already labeling it an attempted armed robbery with multiple witnesses. You'll be cleared. Marcus exhaled, the tension in his body breaking like a dam. Dwyer studied him again, something almost human in his eyes now. You know, I've been doing this job for 20 years. People talk about turning their lives around, but they rarely mean it. He paused, you might actually pull it off. Maybe, Marcus said, but it took losing everything to figure out how. The officer stood. Get some rest. The world might finally be on your side. Outside, dawn was breaking again, 24 hours since that moment on the bridge. Marcus walked through the quiet streets as the sun began to rise, painting gold over the wet pavement. Across town, the girl he had saved was giving an interview. Reporters crowded her, microphones thrust forward. He saved me, she said. He didn't even know me, but he cared enough to stop me. And then he saved us again. When they asked her who he was, she smiled. His name is Marcus Hill. That afternoon, Marcus returned to the corner store. Frank met him at the door with a newspaper in hand. The headline read, Ex-convict stops armed robbery, saves same girl twice in 24 hours. Frank grinned. Guess I hired a hero. Marcus smiled faintly. Just trying to be human. Frank handed him the keys to the upstairs room. You've earned more than that. The job's yours, full-time. And the room's rent-free for now. For the first time in years, Marcus felt the weight on his shoulders lighten. The city around him buzzed with new life. The same streets that once ignored him now seemed to nod in quiet approval. That night, as he sat by the window watching the rain fade, he thought about the strange circle of fate, how a single act of compassion had rewritten the story of his life. He whispered to himself, you cannot undo the past, but you can choose what kind of man walks into the future. And for the first time since freedom found him, Marcus believed it. Because sometimes redemption does not come in years. It comes in a single day when you finally decide to do the right thing.